Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I've tried that about 4 times, that intro, and the weekly Q&A part, which you already heard me flub over, has not been going well. It's been a hell of a week, both ups and downs. I think it's fair to say for anyone tuning in here. I'm not going to talk about the events of this last week in great detail. Just know that I was doom scrolling quite a bit over the course of the last week, so I definitely didn't get a lot done. But I did manage to take some time to work on some things that definitely helped improve that mental state. One thing I started doing this last week, in fact today, I'm actually recording this on Saturday because I have a very busy Sunday coming up, is I started doing a co-op playthrough of a game called Outward. It's like a back to basics RPG that came out like last year. And you can do 1 or 2 player co-op with it, and we actually got a mod to let us do 4 players with it. So I've been playing through that with a couple of friends on stream. I'll probably be doing that throughout the weekend. Gotta say, it's pretty good. It's back to basics, but at the same time, it doesn't feel dated, if that makes sense. It feels very much brought into the modern age, and for a co-op experience, that's actually a really welcome thing. I haven't done a co-op game with friends and I don't even know how long. And so far, about after 6-7 hours, I can recommend it at least to some degree. Still have a lot to learn about that game, but it's a good time all the same. Monster Hunter Rise demo, I did play it. I'm sure that's going to be a question somewhere, if not this week, next week. I'm a Hammer main. I only played the Hammer. I beat Arathian. I beat Mizu. I basically just cleared the missions, did them a few times co-op, and then said, okay, I don't want to go too crazy because I'm not interested in a lot of the different weapons, even though some pretty funny things did happen. I did a cool like wall ride and like flip off of it to dodge an attack that was completely by accident, and somebody on my stream rode, just every time we started a mission they'd go wire bug mount something, wyvern ride them I believe it's called, and it would just ride it into battle right at the very start, which is always worth a solid laugh. So while it's been a very one of those weeks when it comes to everything else that's happening, I've been making sure to keep my mind occupied and make sure that I'm in a nice, healthy state. State of the Realm, kick it back up next week as well, because I'm sure that's going to be a question. We're going to have Air Zivia first and foremost in next week's episode of State of the Realm. We are going to be doing a job balance related episode as well, talking about how the jobs have been balanced without Shadowbringers and how we'd like to see things evolve going into the next expansion, as we do have to start prepping next expansion expectations and things along those lines. Sly's also working on a show. He's definitely been reaching out to help us do shows on a lot of other parts of the community, as you've no doubt seen with our Allure Lounge episode, as well as the podcast month that we did during the bit of a lull before patch 5.4. So we're probably going to be approaching a few more of those, and of course, once there's a show, we might even do like a live State of the Realm almost, where Sly and I get on the show and we both watch at least the initial announcement, upload our entire initial reactions to everything in full, and then do a show on it the following day. So we do have a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Melee Versus is still there as well, and I haven't given up on the guides, but I'm definitely taking time for me with the way things have been this last week. That being said, we've got a Q&A to get to. Thank you to our Patreons for supporting us over on Patreon. Like I said, we do not do a whole lot on Patreon. Just enjoy the Q&As, enjoy the videos. Don't feel like you need to join it. That's all that matters to me. Anytime I shout this out, I like to include, do not feel like you have to. It is there entirely optionally. Please just enjoy the content. It's all the same. It's all free here on the YouTube channel. So I encourage you to take that and enjoy it. But thank you to them, and thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross, Janova, and Kurenai Oni, who have gone above and beyond. Appreciate both of y'all. Appreciate all the patrons on Patreon, and all of you tuning in. So let's see what the weekly Q&A has. I'm recording this late on Saturday, so let's see if it's going to be a quick one or a long one. I did that in quick one, long. Let's answer some questions. All right, the first question that had the hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Happy New Year's, Haps. Happy New Year 2020 New Game Plus. That's what I wanted to say. Second time asker, long time ish viewer. Well, welcome, and let's see what kind of question you got. My question today is sort of strange, but I want to get your take on it since you've been doing this much longer. A few months ago, I left my static after really poor times at a really stubborn off tank. I wound up finding a new one from the college I'm going to, and it's been great. We actually beat Uwu last week, and I was so happy about it. But then it came to my attention that people can actually buy these clears, and there's a huge stigma surrounding ultimates. Just from playing in my own time, I've removed the ultimate title from my character just due to the fact that people are so salty about it. What's your take on this? First of all, if you've cleared it and you know you've cleared it, you should hold that title. But yes, if you go into the Party Finder, you can very frequently find sales for things like Savages or Ultimates. Now, I have not participated in these types of sales because a lot of these sales actually deal with real money. I used to do like Titan Extreme sales back in like 2.1. I think we did a few Gordius sales as well back then, but I never did anything for more than Gil. But it seems like that sale community has just shifted so much towards real money. I mean, because I know I've had people tell me that members of their static pay their rent with this service, but it's against the terms of service and it's happening right in front of the community. It's not a secret. The only thing that keeps it kind of from falling into the trap of I guess being banned is because they say, oh, DM us on Discord and we'll take care of it there, and then it's out of game proof. I'm not a huge fan of the idea of doing sales for real money, and I understand what draws people to doing it, what draws people to buying it. But man, it is a bummer for a lot of, for similar to the reason you list, but more so because it's so widespread and so many, you see just so many party finders that I always have to wonder if I'm like trying to join a static. That actually is something I have to put in my application or in my LFG, like looking for hardcore prog, Savage Ultimate is not willing to do sales. I have to put that in there, because I'm not willing to do them. And I've already been I was turned down from a static back in, was it 5.2? It might have been 5.2. No. It was actually for Epic of Alexander 5.1. They said, yeah, this looks great. We'll do a run here, or we'll see how it goes. And then they asked me if I had like another character for sales. And I said, oh, I don't do sales. And they're like, sorry, that's a deal breaker. That's it. I just couldn't. It's frustrating because I'm sure that there a lot of groups do them, and I've made my peace. I'm not a fan of it, but you should still wear your ultimate title. You beat it, and anyone being upset about that, bro, come on. Like you don't know if this person has done it. Look at their performance. If they're wearing an ultimate title and they're doing like 4K DPS on Emerald Extreme, yeah, maybe get a little upset about it. But don't just look at the person and be like, I bet they bought that. That's just silly. You gotta at least wonder if the person maybe has a kill VOD and FF logs. Again, I know those aren't proof necessarily because it's a video game. Wear your title. You beat it. You beat it. That should be all that matters. There's people who still wear their second coil Savage titles, even though you can just unsync annihilate that stuff now, but it doesn't take away from what they know they experience. And I feel like you should feel that way about your own title as well. All right, next one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. You like jump puzzles, right? Hell yeah. That's the only thing I like doing about Guild Wars 2 nowadays. And I don't even log in for that. A clock tower. Anyway. Where are some places you'd like to see? Anywhere. I loved when they did Kurenai Tower. I was terrible at it. I loved Kurenai Tower though. I loved the Ultimate Ninja Warrior as well. And there's so many missed opportunities. There was one that looked like they were going to do it in Rolger's Reach and they like stopped halfway. But I guess I kind of understand, instead of designing zones with those things with sightseeing logs, they're instead putting it into these more casually approachable jump puzzles and that of the gates in the Gold Saucer. But man, give me one anywhere, one that goes up the side of Yulmore from the base and then goes up to whatever, top limit they're willing to do. I think it would be fun. But I don't think they're going to do any outside of, or very few, I should say, outside of the Gold Saucer gates from here on out. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Haps. Hope this new 2020 is treating you well. Yes, 2020 New Game Plus. Right now, don't know if we're going to make it to ending B. Last year we got ending A, but we'll see. It's still early. It's still early in the playthrough, so we've definitely got some room to see how things go. I have come with only one question of the utmost importance. When is Aloha getting a Miss Aloha? Or would it be Miss Johnson? I forget Aloha's family name. It's a very long name altogether. Aloha Dwayne the Cat Johnson plus me and my girlfriend's last names. We have discussed getting a second cat. It has not been something we have committed to because the pre-pandemic, we were traveling a lot. We had to board them a lot. And it always left them kind of, they didn't like it. Yeah, Aloha doesn't like it, I should say. And so we're worried getting another cat. We don't know how Aloha's behavior really mixes with them. We know he likes other cats. We don't really know how he's sharing a home with another cat. He's a big eater. He just eats nonstop if you give him the option. So putting out food for 2 cats, we're afraid he's just going to eat the other food. He's very demanding as is. He's got 3 cat towers. He goes between them all the time. He needs 2 litter boxes because of the size of the house. And then he's got to share that with another cat. I wonder how well this specific cat, our cat, will deal with another cat. It's something that I'd like to consider. I feel like we need to get a kitten, like something that's like less than a year old, because he seems like he wants to be more of like a fatherly figure. If I play like kitten sounds, he always comes running like out of concern, it seems like. So maybe, but not a Miss Aloha. They fixed him, I believe, when he was a rescue, and I'm pretty sure he was fixed before we got him. So he just needs a friend. He doesn't need a wife. And you know what? Maybe we get him a kitten. Maybe we get him a friend. But we don't know. We don't know if we're going to do that yet. So we'll see. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hope you and yours are doing well. I hope the same for you. With the upcoming expansion, there's a lot of conversation in regards to new jobs. Speculation on what new jobs will be or what role. Do you think instead we might start seeing only one job? So I actually have gotten this question quite a bit in recent weeks, and I do believe we are well on our way to only one job per expansion, but I do not think that'll be 6.0. I am not convinced that they have the data to suggest that limited jobs has been a success. They haven't commented on it very much. And we might get a better idea of that after February 5th, if there is no mention of a limited job, or it's something that is completely absent from even just a tiny little nudge that there might be like Beastmaster as a limited job coming or something. Then they might be doing away with the idea altogether and reallocating those resources into something else. But we don't know. I think we will get a healer and a caster. That is my prediction. I don't like to judge or guess too much onto what they will be. There's plenty of jobs that can be pulled from, but with Gunbreaker, as we've seen, it doesn't have to be a specific job. It can just be an idea that they've now made into a job, like they do with the Gunblade, Squall, Cypher, and now making it its own job when those 2 characters are not Gunbreakers in Final Fantasy VIII. So I think they'll always need a new job, because I think they need it for PR marketing. They need to get people excited about a new expansion in as many ways as possible. But I think we are going to get 2 full jobs in this upcoming expansion, and limited jobs are still a 50-50 in my opinion. Hashtag Mondays, Mr. Happy. All right, it's Mr. Happy Mondays, Mondays, Mr. Happy. Not Mondays with Mr. Happy, not weekly Q&A. We just have it the other way around. Good day, Haps. Hello and good day. Hope you're enjoying the start of 2020 Extreme. Well, like I said, it's New Game Plus. We are playing on a higher difficulty. You know, we got to carry over all of our stats from... Okay, this joke is maybe going a little too far, but you know what? I really like it, so I might continue. Anyway, now for my question. When new content comes out for 14, do you have a set group of people you like to go through that content with, or a squad? Well, if I have a static at the time, they're normally first and foremost who I will go to, assuming we are together for a specific content patch, because we don't... for example, my 5.2 static, we didn't get together for 5.3 stuff, but we did get back together for 5.4 stuff. And now we're running every week. However, most of the time it'll just be like on odd numbered patches. I'll try to rush the extreme trial, and I'll try to get that done as soon as possible. And that'll just normally be with people in FC. Normally it's like the same, like maybe 10 to 12 people who are always rushing through to the extreme at the same pace, like waking up and doing that for an odd numbered patch. So I'd say yes and no, because it's not like, hey, this is the set group of people, but it's always pulled within kind of a limited scope of people who just pursue it at the same pace that I do. But I definitely don't do the party finder. I have historically, but very few times, and not in this expansion in particular. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. You can tell I debated whether or not I wanted to start with something that wasn't the word hashtag, and then decided, screw it, I'm going to leave it all in the video. Hello, Mr. Happy. With 6.0, hello, by the way. With 6.0 approaching, where do you want the next 8-man raid series to go? Do you want it to be brand new or unique? Do you want it to reference? I'm impartial as long as it's well executed. Omega, you know, a lot of people get on me for not liking Nier for being too fan servicey. Let me be clear. I don't like the Omega series because it is too fan servicey. Just because it's Final Fantasy fan servicey doesn't mean I like it any better than the Nier. I think it ends okay, and I'm kind of hoping the Nier raid will pull it together in the same way. But I really like when they... my ideal scenario is when they take an iconic character or theme and incorporate it into the world in a fun and interesting way. Crystal Tower and Return to Evil East are kind of like two of the most thematically successful series. Even though they're not hyper difficult, they're 24-mans. Obviously Thunder God Sid's gonna come into a conversation there, but you know what I mean. They're not like Savage or Ultimate or some crazy thing like Baldessian Arsenal or Delubrum Savage. It's nothing like that, but they're so well executed that I just love them from a story standpoint, from a world building standpoint, and I want that with the 8-man series as well. Overall, I was pretty happy with the way Eden went. It felt like we moved through the story. We were progressing plotline B without knowing it while progressing with plotline A, and they both collide at the end in a way that was mostly satisfactory. We felt a little rushed for the very last one because they were building up to a second hidden plot line that we knew was kind of there, but we didn't really kind of put all the pieces together at the end. And I don't think it was as dramatic of an ending as we maybe would have expected. It was very much just the ending of it. But even that still, they took a one-off summon from Final Fantasy VIII, incorporated into the entire origin of the Flood of the First and how it all came to be and the events that transpired 100 years ago. And then that helps support a lot of the other side story quests we got. And that's great. That's exactly what I want to see. So whatever it is, Eden or Coil-ish or even Alexander, kind of, but things like that, things that feel like they're part of a bigger picture and not so isolated like Omega was, other than Omega going, if you don't cooperate, I'm just gonna, kill everybody, or whatever. And didn't like it. So fingers crossed that it'll be something good. All right, when I clicked read more, this really made sure I read more. I'm going to read the first paragraph because I have already skimmed through it. So they did post the question a little bit further down. A couple of questions, as a matter of fact. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope New Game Plus, 2020 New Game Plus, is going well for you. I have 3 questions, each somewhat... Okay, 3 questions, actually. I only see the second one posted. Where's the third one? Oh, there's the third. Oh, the third one is tied in with the second one. I see now. Apologies for the wall of text. I'll try to summarize it. I actually want to ask something like this for quite some time, but I'm terrified of both your response and hurting your rep if you answer against the community. Since I've more or less concluded the entire ordeal, I thought I'd finally ask. Okay, so this is talking about... so the first question I'll read without the context of the paragraph above. Without using any other stats such as skill speed or spell speed, is using the potency presented in the job menu sufficient in comparing damage based on rotation alone, or are these baby numbers for more casual players? So potency is part of the core calculations that are used to determine outgoing damage. Now, they do not apply one-to-one. It depends on what type of damage you're dealing. For example, magic damage or physical damage, what stats are multiplying it, what your innate abilities are. For example, if you are a job that is expected to keep something like Huton up the whole time, then your potencies need to factor that in. You can't just work in a bubble outside of those skill speed buffs. So I'd say if you calculate potency per minute and then throw all stats aside, it's a somewhat decent way to determine it, but it is missing so many variables that you can't just look at that and make a conclusion. That should be the basis with which you then apply variable after variable after variable in order to determine how these scale based on the job's actual mechanics. Because the way one job scales, they could have 600 potency, but they have some sort of crit scaling on that 600 potency, something that makes it either proc more often or somehow hit harder or apply additional effect. Obviously, we don't have many of those kind of things in Final Fantasy, but you get the idea. Like, there's still variables that need to be applied, even if the potencies at their base are exactly the same. If they're dealt over a period of time, is there a situation where one may actually outperform the other? Is it on 2 targets, 1 target? All sorts of things need to be factored in. But at the very least, it's a good start. But it definitely wouldn't be something I would use to draw a conclusion out of. Second, which is more important, the speed at which a boss is killed or the damage of an individual player. That might sound odd since both are closely, but I ask because the premise of openers I made were to increase raid damage overall due to buff timings. If I go along with that, if a quicker boss kill time results in less buffs or OGCDs to be used at the end of a fight, is that really a DPS loss? So, in terms of FF logs, this can actually happen. Having a faster kill speed will usually, on a median level, improve your overall kill speed. But let's say you individually on your parse, let's say your burst window is in 5 seconds. It's going to start, it'll take 15, 20 seconds for the whole thing to take place, and then it would be over. Your personal DPS would probably be better if you finished that whole burst window and killed it right at the end of that burst window. as opposed to killing it 5 seconds before your burst window, even though the kill speed is faster. Now that being said, your overall DPS is going to be higher than most other players if you have a really, really quick kill speed. But every time you do an opener or a reopener or a buff alignment, you're creating essentially an outlier where your opener, let's say that you have steady DPS and burst DPS. Your opener creates this outlier right up here. Like let's say this is the bottom line. This is your outlier of how much DPS you're doing during your opener. Then as your opener, as it's done, you start to go back to normal. Then you have a reopener, creates another plateau, it goes down. And that happens every time you do an opener or reopener. The more of those you have, or at least the closer you are to landing a kill right on one of those outliers, the better your numbers will probably look. But overall, the faster kill speed should yield a better overall DPS outside of that one extenuating circumstance. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Killing a boss faster should be the thing that takes precedence unless you're specifically trying to manipulate FF logs, in which case there are all sorts of ways people do that. Party Finders for that always goes for things like parse runs and whatnot. And then I don't see a third question. I'm interested in your answer, whatever the case. So, I guess technically, the speed at which a boss is killed, the damage of the individual player versus is that really a DPS loss? So these things all exist, but they all have to be taken on a case-to-case basis. All right, next question. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Now this one says kind of a 5.4 spoiler. They avoided all names. They just talk about a particular event in a very vague way, so I'm deciding not to put this in a spoiler-specific section. Hello, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well as well. This is a spoiler for 5.4, but I'll try to make it as vague as possible, and you did. Near the end of 5.4, we give our ether to a certain NPC, and I notice our HP goes down. My question is, do you think they'll use that as a reason, as a lore reason for a level squish, or am I overthinking it? So, you're not necessarily overthinking it, but you're over expecting that they'll lore explain it at all. Because yes, it's a perfectly viable way in terms of that. If you already have a max level character, but if you are level 1, it suddenly doesn't make sense anymore from a lore perspective. So it's very much about the individual character perspective. They're not going to lore explain it at all, most likely. They'll just do it. Stats are rarely a storytelling thing unless they make you super OP for something, or they raise your health or lower your health. They're meant to convey lore in the moment to give you a perspective of it. But you don't really, stats don't exist in a world, in like an RPG world. You just kind of are better at something innately, whether it be because of your experience. That's why Ash has had a Pikachu for God knows how many years. He'll go to the first gym in a new land and get his ass whooped. You know what I mean? Just using the Pokemon reference, the anime reference right there. It's kind of the same ordeal. Our level increases, but we don't get stronger because our level's increasing. We're getting stronger because we have more battle prowess. We have more experience. We're a hardened veteran. So levels, HP, things like that, they're only used to tell how strong or weak someone is, but those numbers don't actually matter for anything in the actual story, if that makes sense. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hello. I hope your 2021 has been better so far. Yeah, we'll see how that goes after this week. I was curious, do you think that the ranged DPS should be made a little more difficult to play in the next expansion? I'm a machinist and I really enjoy it, but I always kind of have this feeling that I'm playing on easy mode compared to every other role. Bellies and tanks have to worry about going into the boss whenever they can, healers have to heal, and casters have to think about cast times. The only thing I'm really worried about, aside from executing my rotation and doing mechanics, is optimizing tactician. Yeah, as a machinist, you're pretty much right. You also have to maybe, if you're not super comfortable with it, with ninjas, make sure you're actually popping your bot every minute. And keeping up on when your actual timings are for any given hypercharge window to make sure you don't accidentally clip an air anchor or a drill cooldown. But once you get used to it, those things you don't think about. They're second nature. I definitely don't want range to have cast times again. Ooh, yeah. So this conversation goes actually to a completely different topic. Because the topic is less so should they make range physical more difficult. It's if they were to do that, would they raise their DPS as well? Now, the big reason why range physical are the way they are to play is while it's not the support role, it is the supportiest, I guess, in the developers' minds of the DPS. That's why, obviously machinists less so, but it's how they've always described it. We used to have a healer LB3 for God's sake. So if they did this, it would subsequently probably come with a DPS increase. Cast times as well would come with a DPS increase, most likely. And I think they want a role that is for players who don't want to, they have the mobility to move around. They have the freedom to go here and there. They can play backline a little bit more, scout out the arena, the mechanics, understand it. There's a lot of things that go into it that aren't just should it be harder. But comparing the outputs and the role they play in the party, I don't think they need to make it harder per se, but if not enough people are playing the role, they'd have to make it at the very least more fun or stronger to play overall. So it's weird to describe. I know kind of what I'm thinking here, but my short answer is no. My long answer is if they did, they'd probably have to compensate us with some sort of other increase along with making it more difficult. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello and good luck with your 2020 retail. I like how I call it New Game Plus now. Everyone's got extreme retelling. You guys are good. Thanks for buying into the joke. In this expansion, 14 has been focusing more on locking content behind older content, like Bosnia being behind the Evil East raids and the Void Quest being behind the Warring Triad. Do you think this is a good way to keep old content relevant? You think there's too much gating? I'm personally all for it. I know a lot of other MMOs don't do this and let you access whatever you want as soon as you reach the right level and even applies to the story. I think it's weird that they're doing it because they're going to either have to walk it back or change the old stuff so drastically that's the 24-man situation is a big one, especially with Bosnia, because those Stormblood 24-mans do not pop frequently enough outside of maybe weekends for a new player to feel really good about needing to go through them. Obviously, the Alliance Roulette it gives the original 24-mans way too often. I have to believe they're aware of that and that they're coming up with some sort of solution. I think they might actually start. This is something I actually pondered just 2 or 3 days ago. I've often talked about maybe splitting up the 24-man roulettes or even the dungeon roulette since, it's 50, 60, 70, 80. It's going to be 50, 60, 70, 80 in the next expansion. Maybe do 50, 60, and 70, 80. Maybe do that for the Alliance raids as well. I thought maybe more so a PvP roulette style, where every different day you can only get one series out of the 24-mans, and you need to unlock all of them in order to participate in the Alliance roulette. I think that also comes with its own challenges and problems, especially because if you're still queuing into one in particular, it basically makes it impossible. But at the very least, it makes it so the roulette isn't always Crystal Tower. So it solves one problem, but only kind of helps in certain fringe cases with the other problem. So I'm surprised they're doing this, though, because it is going to come with many problems in the future, especially once we're in 6.0. So they have to have a solution on the back end to make this more accessible in some way, because it's just going to keep getting worse and worse for new players. Next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello. Hi. I've thought about the eventual stat squish. I feel like damage numbers are in a really good place right now. Nothing too crazy, and boy, does it feel good when some of my skills hit for 100k plus. Yeah, I think when you get into the million mark, even 500,000 is where it starts to feel a little nuts outside of very specific content. So yeah, I kind of feel you there. As a black mage, what do you think about them implementing a small stat squish every expansion moving forward so we would end up about where we are now? Not sure how difficult this would be from a developer standpoint. Well, it's very difficult. I mean, doing any sort of mass stat squish, because you're not ever just doing it for max level. You're doing it for every single level and every enemy in the game. It all needs to work. Now, I know what you might be thinking, of course, if we're constantly around the same strength, then that means they don't need to rebalance them all. But they still have to take that into consideration and make sure their calculations aren't to some degree off. Now, it does come with a different problem that's more in the psychology department, in that players like to feel like they're getting more powerful. It's just a common trend in gaming overall. If you keep people at around the same strength the entire time, that is going to be a problem, because players will just feel like they're going nowhere fast. So while it might make sense from a logical balance standpoint, is it the smart thing to do from a player enjoyment standpoint? And that's not a question I have the answers to, but these are factors they'd have to take in if they were going to consider something along those lines. I also realized that the question that I had for this was up here, and that I was actually hovered over the other question pretty much this entire time. So we might as well roll both questions into a single take, because now you have the question in front of you, and before you didn't. So the answer to the first question that I meant to be hovered over is there's a possibility, but it would come with some drawbacks. And now let's see what the second question would have been. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Mr. Happy. How you doing? I'm doing good, now that I'm talking to the correct person for the thing that was on the screen for the last 5 minutes. Had a bit of a shower thought that got me wondering. If the level cap is going up another 10 levels and the new jobs start 20 under the new cap, then with our new jobs being at 70, does that mean they could start in Ishgard again? I know there are plenty of corners in the 3 starting cities for some rando to point us to a mysterious new stranger, but if we're starting at 70 anyway, don't you see how they wouldn't have made it to Ishgard? Well, I'd like to present to you another thing. We have level 60 jobs they could have started in Ishgard, because you go to Ishgard technically at the level 50 and 51 MSQ. But they didn't do it. And I think that will continue to be the trend. They will continue to make them available in the starting cities. That way you don't technically need a certain progress to be made in terms of the story and your access. If you're somebody who bought a skip potion, for example, and you want to go unlock these jobs after buying one, it would theoretically be possible because they would be in an area that was accessible to you. And I think they will keep it that way. Also, weird thing to be thinking about in the shower. You're like, man, I wonder if the level cap going up. Yeah, I wonder. I'm going to ask him that. Yeah, I'm going to ask him that. Okay. All right, for the remaining questions, we are going to do a bit of a lightning round. I did take quite some time on some of these. A bunch of Happy New Year still here. Cobra Kai Season 3 was awesome. Definitely got to agree with that. Let's see, what else did we have here? I definitely saw a couple that I liked. Skip past a little bit. What are your thoughts on a Necromancer healer? No. They generally try to avoid evil kind of jobs. Summoner is kind of one that goes against morals, and Rogue are kind of like redeemed villains, but they generally try to keep the idea of an actual villain class, especially one that deals with raising the dead, to be something that they just try to stay away from that. It's not a very common thing in Final Fantasy either, Necromancer. I think it's in Final Fantasy V. It might be in one other game, but in Final Fantasy V, it's something you get basically after you've beaten the whole game in optional post-game content in the re-releases of it, not even in the original. That's definitely not one that I see them ever doing as Necro. Of course, they could do whatever they want. It's their game. I will always bet against Necromancer ever happening, however. There was the super long question. There was the HP going down question. There's the range difficulty question. I think it was mostly just the last few questions that I saw and decided to do that with. I've been assuming Summoner would be one of the only serious reworks in 6.0. Are there any other things that are broken? People are going to keep asking about Astro. I don't think it needs a rework. Obviously, there's actually some comments about my healer DPS discussion last week, which some people understood where I was coming from with that, about how you cannot raise the skill floor. You can't raise the skill ceiling without raising the skill floor if you're going to add a couple of DPS skills or give a more, direct DPS rotation to healers, as opposed to swapping between having a really quick swap between your couple of DPS abilities and then your healing abilities, so you can easily approach both roles in any given content. And then that versus the ability to how much fights actually push you to do any healing at all, which the answer is very few across any given patch. And that's a really difficult thing to answer. So with this, healers, of course, always come into the conversation, especially with the prediction that we'll get a 4th one. So that's the other role that I always kind of look at every expansion. Like, are they going to change the way fights are designed? Are they going to change the way that DPS or healing is designed overall? Maybe lower the potency on them so you can't just use one ability and put someone at full HP without actually increasing the damage frequency. It's a whole conversation. We had it kind of last week, and the discussion continues in the comment section of this one, and it's a very, very difficult thing to approach in terms of what their goal is versus what hardcore players are actually asking for. So healers are always up on that. I think Bard's just going to kind of take a step back and maybe get a few extra things. I don't think Apex Arrow is very well designed. I think Bloodletter probably deserves some charges, but a rework, probably not. Machinist, I think, is on a good track. Doesn't need it. Dancer, also on a good track. Red Mage, you maybe could argue a few tinier things, but don't just add another thing at the end of Scorch, please. Black Mage, people are wondering, because they have everything and it's perfect, so what the heck do they do next? That's always a scary thought. Summoner, as you've said, I think Summoner needs a ground-up rework. I think the tanks are all fine. Healers, we already discussed, as always on the board. Healers, in my opinion. Always, always, always. And then what else is there? The melees. Monk will probably build on what they've already reworked in 5.4. Dragoon is a big question. I don't know what they're going to do. I feel like we'll get like a mini rework maybe on Dragoon, since they can't just keep adding things to the end. It's kind of like with Red Mage. You can't just keep adding another button at the end of your every 1 minute, 2 minute, whatever. And that's kind of the only route I see them going with Dragoon otherwise. Unless they want to add a full-on like extra positional combo after Raiden Thrust. What else is there? Ninja. Ninja is tough because I really like Ninja now. That's going to be an awkward one to see what they actually decide to do. And then, what's the last one? Samurai? Samurai is pretty basic. That doesn't mean they have to rework it, though. Because it's fundamentally, like, solid. It's really, it's pretty simple to approach. Yeah, I'm just going to say Summoner and the healers are on the chopping block always. And that there's a few others that might get some mini adjustments that are a bit a cut above what you see for other jobs. There's another person asking about the stat squish. I kind of talked about it a lot this patch. So, the big thing is... so this one, I had to reread it again. Why do people think he's talking about a stat squish? Because we were in the room with him the day before at the media tour, and they mentioned a stat squish. You know, obviously in the presentation they just talk about damage numbers being too inflated. We were in a presentation with him like a day or two, or like 8 days before that, and the term stat squish quite literally came up. That's why everyone who was there says stat squish. We also had obviously the opportunity to ask him questions, and that is another reason. There's a ton of interviews from around that time as well. Job prediction section here. One talking about how Yorha, maybe we could get a few bullet points. Honestly, the few bullet points you need to know what the seed is from the most recent patch. And you kind of just need to understand what Yorha itself is. Also, I guess you need to understand the last boss of the... You need to understand the last boss of the first raid, the last boss of the second raid, the seed that appeared in the cutscene between 5.3 and 5.5. And I guess with that, you'd probably be okay enough. You might be able to predict some of the things that are going to happen. But if you just look up who those characters are, the characters from the first one, the last boss from the second one, and then what happens with the in-between, that should give you a good enough idea of what's happening. Because some of that's actually Drakengard lore, which technically is also Nier lore. But let's just say Nier is Drakengard, but Drakengard's not necessarily Nier. I think that discussion makes sense. And other than that, it is mostly the discussion about healer stuff. For some reason, I thought there was another comment or question that was here that I skipped and that I wanted to address. There's the jump puzzle one. Yeah, there's the other cow. I don't know why I thought there was another question that I skipped past. I mean, maybe I did and I just skipped past it a second time because I'm not used to doing it at this time. No, because I got all of these. Yeah. I did that one. I did that one. The rework question. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much got all of them from what I can tell. Damn, I don't know why I thought I had more questions in the lightning round. But with that, that is going to be a wrap to this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to ask your questions in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And I will see you guys in the next video. Be on the lookout for State of the Realm this week. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye out if any sort of news or anything crazy happens over the course of the next several weeks and building up to February 5th. Definitely a lot of excitement to be had there. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And until then, take care.